What's up? It's Alex here with another episode of the Startup Secrets Show. Today I'm joined by Jaclyn Gallo. Jaclyn, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I'm fired up to chat with you. We usually profile entrepreneurs from all walks of life, all age groups. But we've been on a run here of like 50 plus for the last couple months. So it's been, or certainly the last month and a half. So it's been nice to connect with those in my closer demographic. And so Jaclyn's a really good example for those in the audience who are maybe considering that corporate career path, but have that feeling, but don't know what to do with it. She definitely gave me some nuggets that I'll touch on during the call here. But Jaclyn, I'd love to open up with your experience at that internship where you said, hey, this could be a jumping off point for my career, but then the decision to go, in a new direction.
Yeah, so my vision was very clear. Going into the internship, it was I'm going to do a great job here and I'm going to land a job after college graduation at this large company and try to climb the corporate ladder. And I think when I tell this story, people are expecting me to say that 2 weeks into it, I thought, I can't work another day in my life at this job, but that's not how it went at all. I actually loved the internship. I have great things to say about it. I was really enjoying myself. But if I had to quantify my level of fulfillment, it was probably 80 out of 100. And there was a part of me that wondered if it could be 100. And I wasn't sure, but I felt like I'm young. What do I have to lose? So I
Mm-hmm.
might as well give entrepreneurship a try and see if it can get to 100. So that was kind of my jumping off point.
80 out of 100. So it takes, a lot of people are 20 out of 100 in their job. So it's like, uh, what did that confidence to say, hey, it could be even better, come from?
Mm. So the reason that I felt like I was at an 80 is because I would do work and it wasn't getting me closer to my goals. It was getting me closer to this like large machine's goals, which really had nothing to do with me. If the company made more money, I didn't get paid anything more. It didn't positively impact my life. I wasn't necessarily super passionate about the company's mission. And so I had this wondering if that extra 20% would be completed if I had just been working towards my own goals. So that was kind of the starting point of, could I make up that 20 by pursuing entrepreneurship? Except I had no business ideas. And I think another part of the confidence also came from my childhood. So I was raised in a household, very, very fortunate, where my dad always told me, you can do anything you set your mind to. So once I had the what if entrepreneurship idea, then I thought, well, I can do it because I really believe that. And I don't share that to say, if you don't have that or you weren't raised in that environment, then, you can't have this, because the beautiful thing about our brains is that we have neuroplasticity and we can rewire them at any age. So if you don't yet hold that belief that you're capable of anything you set your mind to, that's a really great belief to work on. Write down in the affirmation, say it in the mirror. I recommend like making an evidence list, all the reasons why you believe you're capable of something, why you believe you're going to be successful, as much evidence as you can give your brain to really get behind that belief. If you can get behind that belief, everything in your life will change. So I took the leap because I had the what if, and then I got behind the belief that I could be successful. Now it was much harder than I thought it would be. And I failed so many times, but at least I had the courage to start. And I think a lot of people don't. They don't have the courage to even begin, even when they're at 20%.
Definitely taking some notes here. I'm picking some like very good spicy lines, right? So give yourself evidence, right? That's a big one. Because sometimes it can be as simple as I can't do that. I hate even saying that, right? I don't know to say that, but it's like there's a reason. You might give yourself one reason why you can't. But if you turn it around and just weigh it against reasons you could, it's like, well, you know what? This is actually a longer list, and you can become evidence based, and so it doesn't have to only work in one direction. I like that. Now, understanding your background in marketing, your image, your branding. You did mention, when you decided there was no business idea. Now, what that can translate to is to maybe getting stuck in product or getting stuck on things that might not move the needle. And so that's a struggle and a real pain point for a lot of people. Is that something, what has your experience been, with that in particular?
Yeah. So I knew that that was a problem, and I tried to prevent it by giving myself a deadline to just pick an idea and run with it, which I did. So that was a good starting point. But once I picked the idea and ran with it, which was a month, by the way. So I gave myself a month. It was August of that summer. I wrote down every day. I forced myself at least one idea. And many, many days I would write down multiple, especially weekends. I would just like sit on Saturday afternoon and they were all dumb. But I made a rule: don't judge any ideas, just write them down. And so I just really tapped into like creativity. I was consuming a lot of entrepreneurial content, hearing about other businesses, which often sparked things. So I ended up picking an idea. My first idea was to make these plates that encouraged healthy eating. And it came from a mission-based place. I struggled with an eating disorder in college. And so it was very related to my recovery and something that I thought could help a lot of people. But I didn't know anything about what I was getting myself into. And I spent essentially another year after deciding I'm going to start just trying to make the product, bring it to life. And I did, and that was wonderful. But it took a really long time for me to actually start doing something. And then the product failed pretty quickly. I realized, okay, I have to change a lot of things, or I have to pivot. And I didn't feel called to change a lot of things. I made a lot of my business decisions on my intuition. Like, does this feel right to me? And the answer was no. This doesn't feel right to me. And I've learned a lot, and I want to take that into something else. So my second idea, which was a little more educated, it came from a place of, okay, here's what didn't work. Here's what could be able to work, was to make an app. So all of these things with the physical product that were challenging, I was like, I just need an app. That'll be the solution. And it's so funny because with every new business idea I have, I always think it's going to be easier than it actually is. And I think that's a good thing, because we leap into things and we put our hearts out there and we go all in. And I'm not sure if I knew how hard certain things were, I would have chosen this path. So I'm really glad that I was naive, and I'm really glad that I just threw myself into it, because that's where the magic happens for sure. So the app also ended up failing, and it took another year and a half of development to get to that place where it failed. So at this point, I had been multiple years into pursuing entrepreneurship. I had now graduated college. I moved home with my parents, just trying to get by, had only spent money years and years in a row. And still, I had never actually sold anything. So, I think that there's a lot of lessons there to maybe getting to market faster, the MVP concept that I didn't even know what that was, testing, just kind of putting things out there sooner would have probably served me. But at the same time, I don't have any regrets. And I hope no one listening has regrets, because I really believe our failures are either necessary lessons for what we're meant to achieve, or they are redirections to help us find our path that we might not quite be sure of, but there is a higher vision for us on that path.
Man, I love that. And so it's just authentic experience. Yeah. And so my notes around that were some of the things you did. I just as if I was to critique my own self, and I can see things you did that I see have worked for me. Like, for example, you set a deadline for this is the day I'm going to make something happen. That's a good thing. Good things are good, right? You want to ideate quickly. Now, when you said all your ideas were dumb, maybe they were, but that's what it takes, right? You don't know what sucks until you try. That's why the ideating quickly, pushing, boom. And those failings are personal development milestones, right? Those are not, maybe this product didn't work, but now you learned how to not internalize negative feedback emotionally, or the skills that you have to build in to the successful journey. And so it sounds like you've started to learn, hey, who is my MVP? How do I do this? So before we get into what you're doing now, what are some of the avenues that you've seen be fruitful when seeking knowledge, or when things have gotten stuck, to bring new value or new ideas?
Yeah, good question. I definitely think just all of the free information you can find on the internet. I had a library card, and I picked up every book I could. I listened to podcasts. I asked
Pretty
people
blunt.
I knew, do you know anyone who can help me? Right? Like, do you know anyone who can help me? And people would connect me with like, someone who was retired and did X, Y, or Z and would have coffee with me. And for 30 minutes, I would basically tell them my problems and why my business was failing. And they would give me some advice. And all of that really, really helped. In addition to the knowledge, I think what's also important, especially when you're failing, is feeding your own mindset, taking care of yourself. I mean, so many days I was devastated. I didn't want to get out of bed. I just felt like so depressed, like I just wasn't not enough. And it was simple things like do your laundry, take a shower, feed yourself something that's going to, be sufficient, and just take care of yourself. And then, once I did that, I could see a little bit further and do something a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe reflect on what you learned from this. Okay, once I did that, maybe it was like, maybe brainstorm if you have any new ideas. Maybe talk to this person. I would start just little by little. My what Abraham Hicks calls is your like emotional guidance, basically like your current emotional point. It's really difficult to climb from a really low point to a really high point. So if you're feeling like you're a victim of your circumstances, to go from that to feeling super empowered is almost impossible. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just human, and that's the way we move through emotions. So what's better is to slightly climb up. So maybe you're feeling like a victim, and then maybe 2 days later from doing, maybe you worked out, maybe you talked to a friend, maybe you journaled, and maybe now you feel neutral. You've been able to accept where you're at. You've been able to accept a failure or something that didn't go your way. And then from there, maybe you're able to feel a little bit of hope. And then from hope, maybe you're able to just go into a little bit more possibility. And then maybe at some point you shift into empowerment, into gratitude for the experiences. So I think just also watering that whole mindset piece and your own evolution is just as important as seeking out the knowledge, because if you don't do that, you're not going to want to read the books. You're not going to want, you're just going to feel terrible. So you also have to take care of yourself to be in a place where you even are open to the content.
Emotional guidance. I like that. Now, I want to turn that from it's great to highlight struggles. Now let's talk about successes. But as we do make that pivot, I do want to add this for those who are looking, who might be at that point and are looking to break through. Whether it's your weightlifting or whatever it turns out to be, you don't get to 225 on bench like the first day. And it's easier to see that because it's physical. With the mental, you have to build like decision-making, patience, discipline. And so the best thing you can do if you're going to get into a space, and most entrepreneurs, you don't know, like you're like, all right, I'm starting a business and, I don't know how hard it's going to be. But life is objective in the sense that no matter if Jaclyn and I started a business, she was so much more prepared than me. And I try to do the same thing. Well, it's not get the same result. There's no way to speed that growth up. But when it comes to the mindset that's necessary and to build that 225 on bench, find something, and then I'm going to tie something she said. Build that list of things where you say, this is the reasons why. And then do something small that you may have never done before or found a limiting belief around. And then for the rest of your life, you'll always be able to reference this little thing, because that's all it is, a bunch of little things.
Yeah, I love that. It's really about proving to yourself that you do have the commitment, that you are smart enough, that you are whatever it is that those beliefs that are holding you back are.
Rock solid. And so as we pivot, you start to see those good efforts compound. What would you say would be like your first success in business that you would point to and say, okay, these have grown off of it, but this is the one where I point to maybe internally and say, this is it. Like I did it.
Yeah. It's so weird, Alex. It was so soon after the rock bottom. And I share that because a lot of people are in that rock bottom and they want to give up. And I know I seriously considered giving up. I remember searching for jobs, seriously considered applying for a job. Do I want to give up with this? And that first win was probably, let's say the rock bottom was like lowest low was probably like December 20th, 2018. That first big win came probably on February 5th, 2019. I mean, it was so close. You would expect that it takes so much time, but I really believe that sometimes that rock bottom is the jumping off point for everything you want. And I also believe that we have purpose. I tend to not use that word because I think a lot of people have a lot of trauma around that word, pressure on it. So the way that I see it is, I think that if we choose to have a career, I think we have different avenues we're meant to accomplish in our career, and it can evolve. And, but I think there's a vision for us. I think that we're all born with unique gifts and talents that are meant not just for career. They're meant for our families. They're meant for our friends. They're meant for our community, but they're also meant for our career. And for me, when I finally tapped into them, the success came really quickly. And to me, that was a sign, that was evidence for me, that was guidance from whatever you believe in, that I was on the right path, that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And so what happened between that December 20th and February 5th is I started reading all of these personal development books. And in some book, can't remember what book or where I came across this, I came across a question that changed my life. One question, which just shows, just keep showing up for yourself. You never know what someone's going to say that's going to change everything for you. And if you're someone who shares knowledge, keep sharing it, because you never know what you're going to share that might change someone else's life. And I don't even know who shared this with me. I can't even thank them because I don't remember, but I do remember the question. Yeah, right. And it was, what is working? And the first time I read it, I thought, nothing. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm reading this book. And then I forced myself to really look. And it was like this weird thing happened. Like I was looking at a dark room. And then when I looked again, I was able to turn the light switch on and see everything in the room. And one thing stood out really strong, really clear. It's like there was a spotlight on it. And that was speaking. I realized that I had ignored this gift and talent because it didn't fit into the little box of what I thought of it as. So at the time when I was building this app, I was traveling to local colleges and I was speaking at sororities, sharing my story of struggling with an eating disorder, how I created this app. And I called it marketing because I was trying to get women to sign up for beta testing and all of these different things that I was working on. But I had ignored all of the DMs on Instagram I would get after a talk about how that really impacted them, that inspired, her in this way or that way. And when I looked at what is working, I thought that's the one thing that is working, that I get all these messages, people love it. Maybe I should do that. And it was so weird. You can't chalk this up to anything but divine guidance, in my opinion. It was like the next day I was scrolling Facebook in my misery and I saw this Facebook ad for this online course. And it was like teaching women to become professional speakers. I was like, I need that course. And at this time I had absolutely no money. I had spent everything on the business, all the money I raised, everything. So I just put the course on a credit card and I thought, I'm going to take this course. I remember binge watching it the week between Christmas and New Year. And the inspiration of, you can get paid this much and here's how you write a speech, and just the basics gave me the courage to go pitch myself. And on February 5th, I landed my first multi-5-figure speech. I think I had been paid to speak before, maybe $500 max. So I had dabbled, through this sorority speaking I was doing, mostly to fund more app updates because we couldn't afford any updates. So any way I could get paid, I was like, yes, but not really seriously. So it was so cool. And that speech is it's so crazy to think, one of the biggest speeches I've ever given. It just happened to be my first. The audience was 1,000 women. They had a sold out auditorium. The fire marshal came and said, you cannot let another woman in this room because it's not safe. Because my topic was just so exciting. It was all about women's empowerment. And on that stage, in that moment, only, I don't know, what was that, 6 weeks after the rock bottom, I knew I had figured it out. And I knew that maybe the road would still have bumps, but I was where I was meant to be, and it was finally working.
Whoa, this is explosive. I love this because when you hear the headline at the beginning of the last 5 minutes ago, it's like, here are the dates, but then you filled in the details, and it's like, whoa, like, because that's what makes it real. And so in my notes, I put here like, I have like sometimes, man, let's go back to the top. What is working?
Yeah.
Right, that's a good one. And let me tell you why. Because we have so many limiting beliefs around things. Like, what is a chair, for example? There's nothing to do with this, but it's like you sit in a chair. What else could you do with a chair? Well, you have to almost be introduced to the idea of how to use a chair differently. Maybe you put wheels on it and it's a wheelchair or something. But the belief system is tied to, this is what it is. I have to do entrepreneurship this way. This is a chair, and that thinking. But that book, that knowledge, remove that limiting belief, and look how fast that bottleneck exploded into, your first opportunity. 1,000, wow, transmitting your ideas. It's amazing. And so we spoke a little earlier about that weightlifting example. You can overdo it and be beaten badly by people who are much better. What entrepreneurship does force you to do is find your limits by no other reason than you overdo it. Like, okay, that's it. But a lot of people are the opposite. They don't even know how much farther they can reach. And so I feel like the people who are in the space are probably opt towards overreaching sometimes and like doing too much. That's the theme I do here. All that being said, I want to go back to you here. Your story is really empowering. And so in my notes, I put down the timeline to this point, right? 6 weeks, quick, right? Between then and now, right? 2018, 2-time best-selling author, the Spark Your Light podcast. What has happened between that experience and today?
Yeah. The way I would describe it is like, if you can imagine that climbing the mountain is your goal. I've been climbing the mountain consistently, and along the path, even though the mountain, I'm always going up and I'm always on an incline, there are ups and downs on the incline. So yeah. I have just learned so much and had so many beautiful wins and so many more failures. They're not as fatal, right? They get a little bit easier, or maybe they don't. Maybe you just build more resilience.
I find that the cash cushion that you get as you go get more successful.
Yes, for sure. I actually had that conversation earlier with someone about how people always say, like, I'm big in the manifestation world, and people are always like, oh, like, burn your boats. And it's a common entrepreneurship saying, but I'm like, well, when I am like trying to tap into, the energy of manifesting something I want, it doesn't come from like, I can't pay my mortgage. That just doesn't help. Right. But when I'm like, okay, I'm good and it's safe to go for this thing. It's safe to put myself out there for this thing. It's much more supportive. So I definitely think that that's really helpful. And I also had to learn how to manage money, which I never had to do before because there was no money. And that was actually really hard to learn how to manage it, because there are ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and especially a pandemic, as a professional speaking, being probably 50% of my income was wiped out.
Let's actually pause there for a second.
Yeah.
On that piece, because I didn't even think of that. How did that affect your career? I mean, that's a big piece for sure.
Yeah. So I'll be super transparent. Like, my business's revenue halved in the year 2020 because half of my income paused. And it was okay. Like you said, I had created enough cushion that I was okay. And I'm really grateful for that. But it made me think a lot. And one of the things that I've learned on this journey, from that February 5th, 2019 to today is, I desire a business that has enough income streams that, like, if one were to go away, it wouldn't impact me at all. And even outside of my business, but in my life, right? Like, even if my entire business went away and my husband lost his job, well, what if we have 7 other income streams, And so it's really sparked me as an entrepreneur to think about, how can I be creative and drive other income streams? And that's definitely played a part in like some of the things I've created since 2020, like a membership and online courses and podcast sponsors and just different different avenues outside of just kind of speaking and coaching?
That's a really good piece there, because I feel like now we've kind of touched on our three key audience members, right? Those who are you in college, right? That don't know, like, this is how am I going to do this, and then the people who are in it, and then now it's talking about the new paths and expansion. So what I want to do is make sure I highlight this, and then also talk about your experience and what you bring as a life coach. Before I do that, that expansion piece, right? You need to make a business work, and then once you do it, that's when you can expand. But the reason you do that is when you were mentioning that 2020, like, that was bad for your business, like, the timing is the same for everyone. But it's, where are you in your boat, or whatever, your race car, or like, how are you getting through life, So before that, business is booming, amazing, right? For me, in my experience, like with listmyproducts.com, product listing exploded in that time because of supply chain issues, where it's like transoceanic. So that last mile distribution was great for me, but timing is the same for everyone. And so that goes into why you have to expand eventually, because there's other factors that will affect my business that probably will never be pertinent to Jackie, or those who do you go by Jackie sometimes?
Yeah, no, I'm
Okay.
not really, but I don't mind.
Okay, Jaclyn. That 70s show is still one of the greatest TV shows ever. So it's in my head. But that being said, the need for expansion. And so one of those expanded territories that you went into was, that life coaching. You mind telling about the value that people might not ascribe to having a life coach, but things that you're able to show people that will expand and open their mind and business?
Yeah. I think the greatest way to show the value is like through my own experiences. Like, the reason I wanted to become a life coach is because I hired a life coach actually in 2018, towards that rock bottom when I was looking for everything. I randomly saw this opportunity where this life coach was like doing her certification, and she needed like a practice client, and it was only $25 a session. So I'm like, sign me up. I'm desperate, like, help me. And I just never, I'm very goal driven. So I didn't really think I like needed someone else to
Yeah, so
guide
many
me.
people are stuck at that right there. Why
Yeah.
do I need this? But it's
Yeah.
like, you do. It's your mind.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is having space and a non-judgmental third party to zoom out and help you see what you really want and where you really want to go. I was so stuck in like, nothing's working and I'm going for my goals, that I never thought about, oh, how do I want to feel and what's my vision for my life? And so part one, so I named my company Clarity in Action Consulting. And part one, I named it that because when I was first starting to work with clients, I was like, these are the things people need. And so the clarity piece is, most people don't know. And even if they think they know, they don't really know. Like, or they say they don't know, but they know deep down, and they're not giving themselves permission, and they just need a third party to help them believe. If someone else can believe in you, it can help you believe in yourself enough. And then the other part of it is, like, so much of my work is like deep, like neuroscience, brain transformation. So I bring in a lot of like neuro-linguistic programming. And so helping people rewire their brain. So if you have limiting beliefs, like actually changing them, not just holding the space, but helping them do the work, giving them different exercises to help them do that so they can think differently, thus take different actions, thus create different results. So the clarity piece is big. And then obviously the action piece is big. Okay, now you want to do this. Most people are either too busy or are uncomfortable with doing the things, like, so having someone to hold you accountable can be super, super powerful. So yeah, I mean, I'm a huge advocate. It's changed so many lives. It's changed my life. And it's really about that forward thinking that I think we just don't get in the day to day, and we need to zoom out so that we can get it and then take the action steps to get there, instead of looking back on your life at the end of the year like, is this really where I want to be? You're more actively creating the life you want, as opposed to like looking back and then thinking you should change things in the future.
Yes. And I want to add my benefits that I've seen. And also I have a friend who's, so my experience in real estate too as well. The clarity piece the piece around naming your company in that specific way. I would attribute that mindset piece to like the pieces of a house you don't see. Like people might say, those are great windows. This must be a nice house. How's the foundation? What's you might not see the roof, but what's going on there? Well, these are very key elements to the value of a house when we might focus on the things we see, right? And so that's a piece around that mindset. And I also want to give this here. Having someone hold you accountable, put that down. People, you can do that yourself, right? And the thing is, like in business, in life, people sometimes think because they can do it, it's not worth paying for, which is absolutely wrong because number one, you might have the proper information, like you might be able to do it, but you have to invest the time, the resources to learn it. Also, what is the opportunity cost, right? Where can you be the highest ROI? And so if you're working a job and you're just like trying to get by and you don't have the mindset around it, I could understand how someone in that position might lack the information necessary to say, okay, why would if I can get 6% here, but I only need 3%, I'll do it myself and get 3%. Whereas the entrepreneur would think, man, if I can get 6% by outsourcing this, okay, I'll take my 6%, put it somewhere else and get much more. But those are limiting beliefs because you think just because you could do it, you're going to do it to the highest and best ability. But we all have different talents. And so there's a big value there.
Yeah, I love that. Another thing I'd love to add about my experience. So in April of that year, when things were going really well and I had created some money, I decided to hire a very expensive coach for $15,000. And I, again, put it on a credit card because I was like, hopefully I can afford the monthly payments on this. And it did this magical thing where I was so committed because I was spending my hard-earned money. And so I think there's value to investing. And this can be applied to anything. It doesn't have to be just, hiring a life coach or something. It could be, actually investing in the product you want to create. Or, if you're listening and you've been like putting off some sort of investment in something you want to make, there's value to that because your energy, your level of commitment will change when you put your money behind it. And I think that has really supported me in a lot of different ways, but especially here.
Goodness, that's a good value bomb there. And so as we transition to goals and as we get towards the end of this call here, I wanted to put this in as well. Like for example, putting that 15K up, like going all in, like you don't have to burn the boats every time. Like we spoke earlier about having that peace and calmness, but you have to know what it feels like. Because then you can reference it just like a win. Like you look back and say, like, I overcame this. Okay, I forever know how it feels and what it takes. I burned the boats this time. Like I have to make it work. And so you can reference the feelings that came after it without having to always be in a heart attack situation, right? Because you can only survive so many of those.
Right. Absolutely.
But we have the ability to survive a few, right? So balance.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I think in different seasons of our lives, of our careers, we're in need of different things. And so your job is to figure out like what will serve me the most. Sometimes it's burning your boat. Sometimes it's setting a goal that is so big and is going to push you. Other times it's setting your goal as the next step because you really need to build that confidence, that momentum. So it's not about one size fits all or blanket advice. It's really about what do I need for who I am in this current season of my life, and then take that action.
Man, that's such a value right there, especially as a life coach perspective, helping people identify that. And so let's talk about your next 12, right? Next 12 months are going to be, I'm sure, big in your business. Curious to see what goals you're looking to aim for. And, I'm not say I hold you accountable to them, but I always check up 6 to 12 months with those we have on. So I'd love to hear the great things you're going to work on. I
love that. So I just recently started writing my third book. It's all about finding joy in the journey, because where I feel like I am in my life and my business is, I have really big goals. So it's not like I'm writing this book from a place of I've done it all. I made it. So now I'm happy. Really not at all. I mean, I'm still learning so much. And of course I have accomplished enough. I can pay my bills every month. I have a great lifestyle, but I'm not flying on a private jet. I'm not at the top of the New York Times list. I'm not the top speaker at South by Southwest, right? Like my goals are so much bigger than where I am. Yet I have this feeling, I feel it physically in my gut, of inner peace, joy, fulfillment, And it's not really coming from anything outside of myself. It's coming from feeling proud of what I've done. It's coming from the thoughts I think, my daily routine. It's coming from all of these things. And so I decided that I want to bottle that feeling up and give it to everyone. Let everyone in the world drink it, or as many people as I can possibly reach, in a book. And, I've written 2 books already, and both of them are with my professor from Georgetown's publishing company, which was amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. This time, I really want to reach a lot more people. So my vision is to land a traditional publishing deal with distribution at least all over the United States, hopefully all over the world. My big dream is airport bookstores, because I can just imagine all the people who show up to the airport, they're going on vacation, they didn't bring a book, and then they see my book, and that's exactly what they need. I have that vision that I hold. So that's probably one of the big things. And then just, I have like a whiteboard in front of me with some of my goals. One of them is like,
you're always like really thinking on.
Yeah. One of them is 40 speaking engagements for 2022. And so far I'm at 13. So I got a lot to pack into the next few months, and I'm excited about that potential, and just keep growing. And the last thing I would say, which is kind of, for me, is a more that third level we talked about of like, okay, these are the things I've learned now from like building a business and creating some level of success, is consistency and better money management. Because like, especially in my current line of work, I do a lot of work with colleges. And so during that school year, I have like really high highs. And then oftentimes in the summer or December, certain months, there's lower lows. And so that's why I've been like building a membership and just doing other things to create more consistent income. And then even like the way I manage the money in my business is different now than I used to manage it. I would just like pay myself everything, but now I've put myself on a salary and, like have a certain amount of savings, and I'll pay out a bonus. And so it's just, I'm a CEO now. And so rather than like feast famine, and even in personal life, it's so cool because like it used to be feast famine to where it'd be like, okay, I made all this money, let's go spend it. And this month we have to really budget. I don't do that. I just like, this is like our life. This is, so I've just come so far in that side of it. And my goal for the next like 6 to 12 months is to level up in that even more, to where I feel like I'm not just the CEO, but the CFO of the company, and really confident in the company's finances, not just my personal finances, because I think it's very different. And I think for a long time, I just didn't understand that difference. So those are the main things.
I like that a lot. And so I do always encourage those who are CEOs of the business, become that CFO, really know your numbers, not just because you're like, I want to maximize revenue, but, it really helps especially as you get larger, like we said, what's working, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And so in that piece, I was also wrapping up here. I want to touch on a couple of things there. You talked about the consistency in your life, and hey, this month I didn't have to be so crazy because building it. Entrepreneurship is that craziness, but you're not looking for craziness unless that's who you are. Like maybe that's what you need. I don't know. Different seasons of your life. One thing I wrote down is like 10 p.m. bedtimes. And I go to 10 p.m. bed at 10 o'clock every night, like whether it's Monday or Friday or Saturday, right? Like unless it's like something crazy, but like no, most times it's 10 p.m. It doesn't matter even if it's a weekend, because my excitement, like I get that out of like my day, right? Like I don't have to seek that out at night or, like you're that piece, the entrepreneurship is that explosive, exciting stuff you need, but get in the day, you can build your day and your life around how you're most effective.
I love
and
that.
So that third book there, we want to touch on that, and so we promote that to our audience. But speaking of the masterminds and memberships, how can those who in the audience who really connected with you today, obviously they'll be hungry for your other books, we'll link them below and your website, but what would be the best way for them to connect with Jaclyn?
Yeah. JaclynGallo.com has literally everything. You can read about my online courses, the membership, one-on-one coaching, like anything that's right for you based on, what you feel you need.
I love
and
it.
Social media, obviously. And I have a podcast. So if you want to like learn, I post a lot of content. My podcast is called Spark Your Light. So all those places are good.
Excellent. We'll make sure we link all those in the show notes below. Jaclyn, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Is there anything or last pieces of, maybe one piece of wisdom you might want to share as we close here?
Yeah. I just want to say, no matter where you are in your journey, no matter what level you're at, what's coming for you is better than you can imagine. So anytime you're having a hard day, because we all have hard days, even when you've achieved so much of your goals, we still have hard days. We still have challenges because that's the point of life. We're supposed to evolve and grow and learn and become a better version of ourselves every day. Just remember that it gets to get better and better and better and better. And there's magic on the path for you. And when you open up to it, when you believe it's possible for you, you'll be amazed with the miracles that can unfold. And that's my fourth book. I already know what my fourth book is. My husband like laughs at me because I'm like, I always say to him, is it okay if I say a bad word on this podcast?
No.
No?
No, I'm just kidding. It's okay.
It's not that bad. But I always say to my husband, like something will happen, like I call it a miracle. And I'll be like, you can't make this shit up. And then one day he was like, you should write a book called that. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's
like
a really good title. I would buy that book in the airport. I mean, yes.
Right? Like of magical manifestations. Like I said, I want something. I met this person, the perfect timing. And it's like, this magic is available to all of us. So that's what I want to leave you with.
I love that a lot. I love it a lot. Well, you're right. You can't make this shit up. Jaclyn, thank you so much for being on the show today. My name is Alex Gabay, and this has been another episode of the Startup Secrets Show. Till next time.